pleased to introduce to you Stephen Biles. Steve is the Secondary Teacher of the Year for McKinney ISD. Last week we interviewed the Elementary Teacher of the Year, and today we're honored to have you here with us this morning. I just want to ask you, what does it mean for you to have received this honor?
Well, thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. It means a couple of things to me. The first thing that comes to mind is a sense of gratitude. I'm exceptionally appreciative that I was named the MISD Secondary Teacher of the Year because it's an honor that your peers choose. And I know that there are quite a few folks that could be sitting here just as easily as me. So gratitude is the first thing that comes to mind. The second thing that comes to mind is that I'm probably doing a few things right. Since this is an award that is given to you by your peers, you're selected at your campus level so you can go on and compete. And it means to me that that they believe I'm doing things the right way. So that's another thing I appreciate about it. And the third thing that comes to mind to me is that I probably now have an even greater sense of responsibility of doing things the right way. So I from this point on, I guess, will be holding myself to an even higher standard and my students to a higher standard because I know that I'm acting as an ambassador for the profession, I guess you'd say.
Okay. Well, when did you first start getting interested in being a science teacher? When did you start thinking that's really something you'd want to do?
This is where we probably need a lot of time because I came to the science teaching profession in a pretty circuitous route. When I was at college at Sam Houston State, I took an astronomy course, which has been a love of mine for, I guess, all my life, from a really neat astronomy professor named Dr. Frank Cooper. And he was a lot of fun to talk with and interact with. And we also had a lab component with that. And I noticed that the lab component was taught by a bunch of undergrads and a couple of grad kids. So as we were taking the course, I struck up a conversation with him and said, how do I get their job? I'd really like to do that too. And so his answer to that was, well, score the highest in the class. And so fortunately I did that somehow. And at the end of the course I said, okay, I'd like to teach astronomy lab classes for you. And so for the next couple of years while I was finishing up my degree at Sam Houston, I had the good fortune of doing that. And I eventually worked that around to being the astronomy lab coordinator for Sam Houston while I was there. So that was my, cutting my teeth in science instruction. But I was really there at Sam to get my education degree so I could teach mathematics. And I had chosen to teach mathematics because in high school that was my worst subject. And so going back and choosing to become a teacher, the question was, well, what should I teach? What should be my focus? And mathematics just came to mind because it was sort of the dragon I needed to slay in my life. Huh. So I went back and focused on math and got my minor in mathematics along with my education degree, and then took a job teaching middle school math down in Houston. Did that for a couple of years. And then a position opened up in Brenham, which is where I was living. So I was doing the 75-mile commute into Houston. Position opened up at the high school, so I jumped at that chance and taught math, Algebra 1, for the next 8 or so years, and was always being accused of being a math teacher a science teacher in math teacher clothing. So a position opened up in the science department to teach physics, which is essentially applied mathematics with a little more meaning. So I jumped at that chance because in my math class I was always looking for a way to do activities that were data-driven and experiment-driven to give the math the meaning, which is probably what I didn't get in my high school experience, which is why I struggled at math. So I took that opportunity to begin teaching physics and have never looked back. I've been teaching either IPC or physics and astronomy now the whole time. So
now, didn't you work for NASA at one time? And did this help you even improve as far as your knowledge of astronomy and teaching astronomy?
Yeah, I did. I had the good fortune of working for the NASA Ames Research Center as an aerospace education specialist for a while, and then that morphed into the digital learning network coordinator for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So I worked at 2 different centers over the course of about 3 years. And I initially pursued a job with NASA so that I could have relevant experiences to bring back to the classroom. So I started off on that as the idea was to go build some experiences that I could give to my kiddos. So that experience was really unique. I got to work with a lot of exceptional people who are really excited about what they're doing, people who were doing it at a really high level with lots of energy. I got to work with engineers and scientists, astronomers, project managers, even rubbed elbows with a couple of astronauts along the way. Got the chance to drive the Mars Curiosity rover prototype, which was really cool, in the Mars yard at JPL. So my time at NASA was really about building some experiences that I could bring back to the classroom and share with kids and make science real, hopefully make it a little bit more real than they may have had an opportunity to see in the past.
That's great. You may have already mentioned this person, but what teacher had the biggest impact on your life and why?
Can I expand beyond
Sure.
just one?
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry about that. There's
Absolutely.
a couple of people that come to mind. In my elementary school days, I had a science teacher named Alan Beats, and he was a teacher sort of like Bill Nye the Science Guy that made science really cool and really fun. And he taught me science can be fun. It's not a worksheet kind of thing. And it probably helped that oftentimes he'd teach with a great big boa constrictor draped around his shoulders. So that captivated us for sure.
Where was this?
This was down in Houston.
Wow.
So that was pretty neat. Another teacher that comes to mind is a teacher that taught me the importance of having a sense of humor, about yourself and in your classroom and about life in general. And that was a guy named Harding T. Dion. And he was my high school art teacher. And I don't think there was ever a day when people left his classroom without a smile. So that was a really neat experience. In college, I took a design class from a professor named Dr. Alan Stasel. And I think he was probably the one educator in my life that taught me to think, that implored us to think. He had a way of when you're working on a project and presenting your ideas to him, of looking at you and raising one eyebrow and asking you a string of questions that forced you to think deeper about what you were doing. So I really appreciated his approach to education. It prompted me to do a lot more thinking as I try to do this job. But I think
do you do that with your students as well?
Yeah, they probably get frustrated that I ask more questions than answer. So I tend to do similar kinds of things, as ask and guide as best I can. But probably the most influential person, as far as influential teachers, would be my dad. My dad had the courage to and the patience to allow me to learn by doing. And I can think of a couple instances in my life where, as a parent, I would have had a hard time not blowing up when you hear what I did. For instance, he bought both my sister and I guess we were about 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old, mini bikes. And mine was a Kawasaki 75, and I can still smell it to this day. It was neat. But after having that mini bike for a while and riding it all over the neighborhood and basically terrorizing the neighborhood probably, I took it apart. I had a habit of taking things apart and trying to understand why they did what they did, how they worked. And I took it apart basically down to nuts and bolts. And he came home one day from work and saw the garage and my mini bike all over the place and didn't blow up. In fact, he said, well, if you ever want to ride that again, I guess you better put it back together. And that was an excellent thing for him to say to me, because it gave me the courage to be able to explore and not worry about failure.
Did you get it back?
I did. I eventually got it back together. I had a couple of bolts left over that I never figured out what they went to. But that kind of learning, learning by doing, is I think terribly important. And him allowing me to have experiences like that, I think, made a big difference in my life. I think.
That's great. Well, finally, I want to give you my city slicker question. Okay, what one thing do you want your students to have learned from having had you as a teacher?
So after a kid spent a year with me, I'd love to think that they would leave my classroom with a sense of wonder. I would like to think that they appreciated the things that they saw and understood how incredible the universe actually is and how surprising it is to us, and then carry that throughout the rest of their lives, a sense of wonder for the incredible universe that we live in. That's, I think, the most important. And if I can add to that, the daringness to dream big.
Okay. Well, you know what? From what Dr. Pearson says and Mr. McDaniel say about you and your teaching in the classroom, I think you do achieve that with your students. So we appreciate the impact that you have on the lives of our students here in McKinney and McKinney Boyd High School, and know that you're going to represent our school district well. So thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. I sure appreciate it.
You
Thanks
bet.
a bunch.
Let's make it a great week. Thank you.